Good morning, Africa, and welcome to this edition of this Friday morning of Africa Good Morning. Now, we will be bringing you the latest in news stories from across Africa and beyond the African borders. Now, my name is Glenora Shipura, and this is Aina Raisa Kweyo.
Happy Friday, everyone. Today is World Plumbing Day. World Plumbing Day is an international event initiated on the 11th of March by the World Plumbing Council and held each year to recognize the important role plumbing plays in societal health and amenity. Here is more on World Plumbing Day. Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. In our top stories, a gunman in Nigeria attacked a deputy governor's convoy, killing at least 19 people. At least 19 soldiers and security personnel were killed in Nigeria's Kebbi State on Tuesday during an attack by armed gunmen. According to local residents, the gunmen attacked the deputy governor's convoy. The ambush was followed by a gun battle in the town of Kanya. On Monday, at least 57 vigilantes were killed by heavily armed criminal gangs known locally as bandits, and earlier in January, dozens of gunmen on motorbikes ransacked a village and killed more than 50 people, also in Kebbi State. Attacks in the region have intensified, coinciding with a military push against the bandit camps.
Now, in our next story, xenophobia resurfaces in South. Malawi government speaks out. Now, government has said it is still monitoring the spate of attacks in South Africa, which have been tense this week. Now, Foreign Affairs spokesperson John Kabache has told the press that government is ready to engage the South African government if the situation escalates, so that they may map the way forward. Now, despite no official records of Malawians being attacked in a spate of xenophobic attacks, spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs John Kabache said the government is closely monitoring the situation. Now, meanwhile, Tyrone Seal, who is the acting spokesperson for South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is also the chairperson of the security organ for SADC, said law enforcement authorities in the country are working on the clock. Now, allegedly, the South Africans are said to be hunting down foreign business owners who do not have proper operating documents, and the angry mob has since forced them to close their businesses.
In our next story, UK sanctions Roman Abramovich and bar sale for Chelsea Football Club. Chelsea Football Club owner Roman Abramovich has been hit with an asset freeze and travel ban as part of UK government sanction targeting 7 Russian richest people. The owner put the club up for sale on the 2nd of March, but this is now on hold due to the sanctioning. The UK government have released a statement confirming the sanction of Abramovich. The club had been given a special license to continue with football-related activities, but the sale of the club has been barred following Roman sanctioning.
Now, cases surge in Nigeria as 60 Ukraine returnees test positive. Now, Nigeria announced a surge in COVID-19 infections a day after registering the lowest daily figure recorded since the start of the pandemic. Now, on Monday, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control announced only 2 cases had been recorded in the country. On Tuesday, the health authorities recorded 118 new infections. The surge in the number is partly explained by the arrival last Friday of 772 evacuees from Ukraine currently at war with Russia. Now, of these, at least 60 tested positive for coronavirus. Now, the death toll still stands at 3,142, while the infection toll has increased to 254,777 cases.
In our next story, Mali to investigate the disappearance of Mauritanians on its soil. Mali said it would investigate the disappearance of several Mauritanians on its territory, which has caused a diplomatic row between the two West African countries. Mauritania summoned Mali's ambassador on Tuesday to protest the recent criminal acts perpetrated by regular Malian forces against our defenseless and innocent citizens in Malian territory. And this is according to a statement by the Foreign Minister. The statement did not further lay out its allegation against Malian forces or say how many people were missing. In a statement, Mali's government spokesperson Abdoulaye Maïga said Mali would open an investigation and send a high-level delegation to the capital, to Mauritania, in the coming days. And that is all for now. More news coming up after the break.
Have you received a loan from NSFAF? NSFAF loan is the same as any other loan. It must be paid and settled. NSFAF has a set of guidelines on how you can repay your loan and become debt-free. Therefore, it is important that you, a former beneficiary and a responsible Namibian, show your patriotism by helping pay back your loan and thus helping NSFAF become a revolving fund for the benefit of future potential students. By failing to pay back your NSFAF loan, you risk being blacklisted or having a court order against you. So arrange with the fund to pay back your loan today. For more information on how you can repay your loan, visit our website at www.nasfaf.na or visit our Facebook page or Twitter. Do the right thing and #paybackthemoney.
Choose your flex package with Paratus today. Sign up for ultra-fast fiber with the convenience of mobile LTE. That's 2 products in 1 bundle. It's new, it's 1 bill, and you can stay connected in more than 1 location.
For more information, visit paratus.africa/NA.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now we tackle our second batch of news stories. Now, 3 soldiers sentenced to 15 years in jail for armed robbery in Zimbabwe. Now, Zimbabwe's court-martial has sentenced 3 soldiers to 15 years in prison, each for armed robbery, theft, and unlawful entry. Now, in a statement, Director Army Public Relations Colonel Alpheus Makotore identified the trio and said that they were convicted of armed robbery, unlawful entry, and theft after a fully contested trial before the General Court-Martial sitting in Bulawayo last week. Now, they had all pleaded not guilty to the charges. The trio, who were all serving with 4th Infantry Brigade in Masavingo, committed armed robbery, unlawful entry, and theft cases in and around Masavingo between January and July 2021. Nandovo was reduced in rank to private before all 3 were discharged from the Zimbabwe National Army with ignominy and sentenced to 15 years imprisonment each for the offences. The Zimbabwe National Army has warned that any of its members caught on the wrong side of the law will face the full wrath of the law.
In our next story, Uganda government proposes a year in prison for public spitting. The Ugandan government is proposing a law that makes it criminal for individuals found spitting in public, a habit that is deemed to be a dangerous public health hazard. The proposed Public Health Bill 2021, if passed by Parliament, would impose a 12-month jail term or 150 currency points of penalty of both of those culprits. The bill was tabled before the Parliament last month and is being scrutinized by the Health Committee. The government contends that spitting comes with advanced health consequences that include the spread of multiple diseases.
UN Libya advisor aims for election agreement this month. Now, a senior United Nations Libya official is seeking agreement this month on election laws and constitutional arrangements, she told Reuters on Wednesday, with rival factions locked in a dangerous standoff. Now, Stephanie Williams said she wanted the talks between members of the parliament and High State Council, the country's two recognized legislative bodies, to take place before Ramadan, which is expected to start on April 1. Now, Libya faces a political crisis after the parliament last week swore in a new government, with the incumbent administration refusing to cede power amid the fallout from a failed attempt to hold national elections in December. Now, each rival government has the support among the armed factions based in Tripoli, and the parliament-backed Prime Minister Fatih Bashagha has said he intends to take over in the capital this week, raising fears of clashes. Now, asked which one the UN regarded as valid, Williams said, "We are not in the business of endorsing or recognizing governments," and added that she was focusing on pushing for an election.
In our next story, in Mozambique, Cyclone Gobe threatens 580,000 people in two provinces. When tropical cyclone Gobe makes its expected landfall in Nampala and Zambezia, 580,000 people, 7,104 schools, and 6,679 health units could be affected. An extraordinary session of the Technical Council, the National Institute for Disaster Management Risk and Reduction meeting in Maputo declared. The National Institute for Meteorology on Wednesday warned between 150 and 250 millimeters of rainfall in 24 hours. The epicenter of Tropical Storm Gobe was already over Mozambique Channel, and it had the potential to evolve into moderate tropical cyclones with winds around 160 kilometers per hour, gusting up to 180 kilometers per hour. And this is according to INAM.
Now, in our next story, we are again in Libya. Libya opens center for migrants in Tripoli. Now, Libya has opened a center for migrants on the airport road in Tripoli. Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Biba, in his opening speech on Wednesday, stressed that it was imperative to take care of migrants and provide them with appropriate conditions. Now, a statement from the Prime Minister's office posted on Facebook, there are medical clinics, gyms, as well as departments with technological equipment needed for immigrants to communicate with their families at the center. Now, irregular male immigrants from Egypt, Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia will be accommodated in the center, according to Libyan Organization for Combating Irregular Migration. Now, the number of irregular migrants in Libya reached 700,000 at the end of last year. Now, in recent years, the North African nation has become one of the important points of transition to Europe for irregular African migrants fleeing poverty and conflict.
Now, in our next story after the break, we bring you Dr. Michael Simmons, who talks about basic income grant. More on Africa Good Morning coming up next.
Choose your flex package with Paratus today. Sign up for ultra-fast fiber with the convenience of mobile LTE. That's two products in one bundle. It's new, it's one bill, and you can stay connected in more than one location.
For more information, visit paratus.africa/NA.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, in our next story, Dr. Michael Sampson, who holds a PhD in economics from Stanford University, and has worked for 31 years in social protection and has supported the design, implementation, and evaluation of social protection programs in over 40 countries. Simpson believes that a universal basic grant in Namibia could not only stave off immediate food security for thousands of Namibians, but helped uplift Namibia's development overall. Here he addresses three of the most pervasive myths around a basic income grant. This video was compiled by Yana Marie Smith. Let's have a look.
One of the myths that we hear most commonly cited is that a basic income grant is unaffordable. The NAMTAX Commission more than a decade ago looked at Namibia's public finances and costed a basic income grant and found, as it has been found in studies in other countries, to be, yes, expensive but affordable. It requires a substantial commitment of fiscal resources, but when you look at the existing tax effort in Namibia and you compare Namibia's tax to GDP ratio to comparable countries in the region, across Africa, and around the world, you find that Namibia can increase the additional revenue required to finance a basic income grant without undermining its economic competitiveness globally. In fact, Namibia has anywhere from 4 to 8% of gross domestic product available to increase its tax to GDP ratio and still be within the expected range for a country given its economic and structural characteristics. And Namibia would only require 1 to 4 percentage points of that in order to finance a basic income grant. The second biggest myth is that a basic income grant would create dependency, that if the government's providing benefits to people, that it will somehow make people lazy or more reliant on government. When we analyze the impact of universal benefits on the behaviors of workers in households, we find the complete opposite. A secure and reliable source of income, even if it's relatively modest, 300 Namibian dollars, 500 Namibian dollars per month per person. This is not typically considered enough to make people want to lay down on a couch, kick their feet up, and just stop working. Rather, it has the opposite effect. It better enables people to participate in more sustaining livelihoods. It gives them a more secure basis from which to make what are often high risk but high return investments in job search and in livelihoods. One of the most consistent effects we see from a basic income grant is that people use these resources to invest in their children's human capital. They ensure that children go to school, that they get the health care they need. That is, that their future capabilities are protected. This human capital, this cognitive capital that contributes to building the knowledge capabilities are so important for a nation's future prosperity in the 21st century. So it's not that a basic income grant creates dependency. Quite the contrary, it contributes vitally to a nation's development. The third myth we hear is that a basic income grant can be targeted. And in a way, that makes sense. If you've got a limited amount of money and you have a large number of very poor people, why not just give the benefit to the poor? It's the most intuitive of the three myths that I'm talking about. But when I started getting involved in social protection and we did evaluations and impact assessments of the child support grant in South Africa, we visited the bright crimson spot on South Africa's poverty map, the district with the deepest poverty, Mount Frere. And in Mount Frere, we visited people who didn't even know about the child support grant. And those who did know about it had tried to navigate the complicated means tests that aimed with all good intentions to reach the very poorest, but in fact, because of the bureaucratic bottlenecks, created insurmountable challenges. We learned that targeting is the most challenging design feature for a program. Even in the best of times, a universal benefit is the best way to reach everyone and make sure that no one is left behind. And keep in mind, when you give this benefit to upper income groups, to people in the higher income families in Namibia, you are in essence giving them a tax rebate. They are the ones, in fact, who are paying for this program. And by sharing it with everyone, those who need it the most and those who are paying for it, you create a benefit which is a symbol of national solidarity.
Welcome back to Africa. Good morning. The Namibia University of Science and Technology campus in Enana officially opened yesterday at the Billy William Mwaningange Rural Development Center. The opening happened simultaneously with the campus beginning the 2022 academic year. The campus has so far registered 200 students that are enrolled for different programs. The aim to bring the campus to Enana is to bring education closer to a greater number of people who were not reached with the services and to avoid the 800-kilometer drive to Windhoek where NAST has a campus. Let's have a look at this video.
Thank you, Ms. Nakosera, Chairperson of Council, for the job well done on the vote of thanks of this first and the closing remarks of this first part of the program. Thank you also for your support to NAST, always willing to
Yes.
What is 500?
It's a pleasure. Now it's open. Where is the door now? There. Then we can open it like
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning, and thank you very much for joining us. Today is Friday. Please don't forget to be your own sunshine. And on that note, here is your weather.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. Now, in our next video, Angela Prusa, a Namibian cannabis advocate and founder of the Cannabis Hemp Association, urges Namibians and government to strengthen the conversation around cannabis and its plethora of uses that can help uplift Namibians and prevent the damaging consequence of an antiquated and harmful law that outlaws the substance. Now, she spoke to Yana Mari Smith. Let's have a look.
My name is Angela Prusa. I'm from Namibia and I am founder of the Cannabis and Hemp Association of Namibia. I'm also a cannabinoid practitioner. That means I work with cannabis as a medicine, and I am a local cannabis advocate.
Angela, what has motivated you to tackle this at times very heated debate about the legalization or decriminalization of cannabis in Namibia?
So the cannabis law that we have in Namibia, the law that prohibits cannabis, is one of the last remaining apartheid laws that we still carry. It is a law that's based not on evidence or the facts of the harms of cannabis. It is based on a racist motive. I have worked with this plant for a very long time, and I think it has amazing potential, not just for medicine, but also industrial potential benefit for our country. And I think it's really important that people's human rights are respected when we talk about substances and laws. There was a study done on the harms of substances. Alcohol and tobacco are more harmful than cannabis. So imagine when you're at home having a glass of wine and you have the drug squad breaking into your house, assaulting you and your family, putting you in prison and charging you. It disrupts the communities. It traumatizes people. It breaks families apart. It gives people criminal records, which means the opportunities and then lack of opportunities in their lives are affected. It's a law that causes a lot of harm, and essentially the prohibition of that law is more harmful than the cannabis itself, not just because of the things that I've just named, but also because essentially if we tap into the potential of cannabis, the benefit can be so much greater. And if we bring the cannabis market from the underground, where it is not regulated and it is not transparent, and we don't know what is in the products that people are smoking and the cannabis that's being brought in from other countries, all of this is harm reduction when we can bring transparency and regulation and age regulation and education and support for people who, for example, suffer from, dependence on substance.
Do you think there has been a gradual change in attitude?
So I've noticed a lot of change over the years because I have a lot of people that get in touch with me, sharing their story with me of how cannabis has helped them. A lot of people who use cannabis recreationally, what I call adult use, are just people having a spliff, smoking a cannabis at home after work to relax. These are people who are in positions of power. These are people who are pastors. These are people who are teachers, and people have been so scared of saying anything about it because of the stigma around it and because of the prohibition, because it's going to land them in jail. But over the years, I've seen even in the communities, like the education that's been happening and having more conversations around it, that it's changed people's perception of the plant. And I think that's the important thing, is to keep having these conversations. But even at a government level, over these last 6 years, I've seen there is a change in our society when it comes to cannabis. And so many people now recognize, that cannabis isn't as harmful as, all this fear mongering was making it out to be. I'm not saying cannabis has absolutely no harm. That's not what I'm saying. But it is definitely less harmful than alcohol and tobacco. And we need to treat it as such.
Where's the world heading, and why should Namibia bother with what the world is doing?
Because the World Health Organization and the United Nations have rescheduled cannabis and have admitted that cannabis does have medicinal value. So based off of that, but even before that, there were various countries, who looked at legalization for various reasons. For example, in South Africa, the courts recognized that it is our human right in the privacy of our own home as adults to utilize this substance. The whole world, all over, there's countries who are moving towards legalization. And I think for us in Namibia, it would be a missed opportunity to not recognize the benefits of cannabis and hemp. There was a report that came out, which is the cannabis and hemp are able to help us achieve 15 out of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. We can be utilizing this plant and all the plethora of benefits of industry that it can offer us, as well as honoring the human rights of those people who smoke it.
Where do you hope this conversation will go?
I hope that this conversation can become more public between government and communities, so that we can have the conversation about how do we legalize this in a good way, so that when legalization does occur, because occur it will, but how do we legalize it in a good way so that those harmed by prohibition, the marginalized communities, and the well-being of nature is at the core of that legislation, for it to be a truly Namibian market for local people, for marginalized communities, for everyone, because it is moving towards legalization. That is going to happen inevitably.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning, and thank you for staying with us. Now we're going to be tackling our economic news stories. Now in our first story, Eskom moves to stage 3 load shedding. Now load shedding will be reduced to stage 3 from 2100 hours tonight until 5 p.m. on Friday. Thereafter, stage 2 will be implemented until 5 p.m. on Monday, as previously communicated. South Africa's embattled power utility, Eskom, said in a statement on Thursday. Now the parastatal has reported some recovery in generation capacity over the past 24 hours. The energy provider said the emergency generation reserves have sufficiently improved to permit a reduction in the stage of load shedding. Now, a generation unit each at Maltla, Medupi, Kusile, and Camden power stations have returned to a service, while a unit each at Matla, Letabo, and Arnott power stations have been taken offline for repairs during the same period. Now, 2 other units are expected to return to service today, while another 5 generation units are expected to be back on service by Monday afternoon. Now, total breakdowns amount to 13,942 megawatts, while planned maintenance is 7,136 megawatts of capacity. Now, Eskom would like to apologize for the implementation of load shedding and will continuously review the situation and act appropriately as circumstances change.
In our next story, Tanzania focusing on strengthening export and special economic zones. The government said yesterday that it was focusing on developing the special economic zone and the export processing zones infrastructure as a way of attracting more investment into the industrial sector. Investment, Industry and Trade Minister Ashatu Kajijaji said this in Dar es Salaam on Tuesday. She noted that promoting investment was crucial towards job creation and economic growth. Hence, having the SEZ and EPZ necessary infrastructure in place is crucial. We are currently finalizing some procedures to ensure the one-stop center starts to serve investors efficiently. We have already put together 9 ministers and there are only 3 left.
Now, South Africa wants a single African currency to boost intra-continental trade. Now, South Africa is in full support of establishing a single African currency backed by the Continental Central Bank and Monetary Institute. According to International Relations and Cooperation Minister Neladi Pandor, the establishment of the African Union's African Central Bank, African Investment Bank, and the African Monetary Institute are considered critical to facilitate a single currency and boost the intra-Africa trade. It is against this backdrop that the establishment of the African Union financial institutions comprising the ACB, the AIB, and the MI are considered as critical to facilitate the creation of a single currency and boost the intra-Africa trade. Now, these institutions form a key component of the flagship projects of Agenda 2063, she said. Now, furthermore, Pandor said South Africa utilizes its participation at AU statutory meetings to call for the establishment of the AUFIs and the subsequent realization of a single currency. Now, according to Pandor, this is a long-term objective in creating harmonization of SADC countries' fiscal and monetary policies.
In Mozambique, inflation drops to 6.84% in February. Year-on-year inflation stood at 6.84% in February. Mozambique's National Statistics Institute announced this on Thursday, a decline in relation to January. Year-on-year inflation in January stood at 7.8% and dropped to 96 basis points in February, according to the most recent Consumer Price Index bulletin. According to the INE, inflation in Mozambique is mainly influenced by food and beverage prices. The Consumer Price Index is calculated by the INE from the price changes of a basket of goods and services with data collected in 3 cities, which include Maputo, Beira, and Nampula. With that being said, let's have a look at your economic indicators.
Choose your flex package with Paratus today. Sign up for ultra-fast fiber with the convenience of mobile LTE. That's 2 products in 1 bundle. It's new, it's 1 bill, and you can stay connected in more than 1 location.
For more information, visit paratus.africa/NA.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Thank you for staying with us on this lovely Friday morning. Now, up next, we'll be taking a look at our sports news brought to you by our correspondent, Ari Hochart. Let's have a look.
Good day, everyone. It's international sports news, and we start off with cricket. It's the World Cup, Women's 50-over World Cup that's taking place at the moment in New Zealand, and it's host New Zealand that had an important game. They played against India, and they lost their first game against the West Indies in the opening game of the tournament, but New Zealand came back now. They had a much better performance against India, and they beat India by 62 runs. New Zealand batted first. They made 260 for the loss of 9 wickets, with Satterthwaite batting well, making 75, and then India could only reply with 198 all out. So New Zealand winning by 62 runs. A big game on Saturday for New Zealand, the hosts. They play against Australia. That is on Saturday. England will play South Africa on Monday, and South Africa's other game will be on Friday when they play against Pakistan. Now I continue with tennis news, and news is that Novak Djokovic, he announced that he withdrew from the Indian Wells tournament that is going to start, the men's tour is going to start on Friday, that is being played in California. The reason is that he's not vaccinated yet, and the American law is still that non-Americans need to be vaccinated to to go into the United States of America. Djokovic was a second seed for the tournament, but now he drops out, and many critics have asked why he entered in the first place if he knew that was the restrictions or the regulations, and now it leaves the second seed spot open in the tournament. One player that will benefit from Djokovic not being there is Andy Murray from Britain. He was meant to play Djokovic in the third round. Some results from the women's singles that I can mention that already got going, and one surprise was that Sophia Kenin, she was the 2020 Australian Open winner, and she lost in the first round in a round of 128. She lost against Beatriz Maia, she's from Brazil, and the score there was 6-3 and 7-5. Another result in the women's draw is Kaya Kanepi, and she beat American, that is Roland Montgomery, by 6-3 and 6-3. And now I continue with some football news. Champions League football that was played, and it was Manchester City that went through to the semi-finals of the Champions League as expected. They had a 5-0 aggregate going into the second leg at home. Wasn't a good game. They drew 0-0 with that was with the Sporting, and they went through on 5-0 on aggregate. Enough for them to be in the semi-finals of the Champions League. Another big game that was played, and that was Real Madrid that plays against Paris Saint-Germain and the PSG, as they called, and it was Real Madrid that came back from 2 goals down. The aggregate score in the second half of that game was 2-0 in favour of our PSG, but then there was in 17 minutes there were 3 goals scored by one player, that is Karim Benzema, and he scored 3 goals for Real Madrid, and that is to put them through on 3-2 on aggregate to go through to the semi-final. The 4 teams in the semi-finals then is Bayern Munich, Liverpool, Manchester City, and then also Real Madrid. On to Formula 1 racing news, and it is the Haas team that acted very quickly, very swiftly to replace Nikita Mazepin, the Russian driver that was axed. That's because of the Russian invasion into the Ukraine, and he was replaced by a Haas driver, a driver that is well known at the Haas team, and that is Kevin Magnussen. And Magnussen, he is from Denmark, and he was a Haas driver from 2017 to 2020 before he went to IndyCar racing in the USA. So he's a welcome return. He signed a multi-year deal with Haas, so he will be driving with Mick Schumacher this year in the 2022 season. The first race of the season will be in 2 weeks' time, and that will be in Bahrain, the 20th of March. And to conclude today's international sports news, it is cycling news. It is the Paris-Nice cycling tour that continued. It was stage 4, and it was a time trial of 13.4 kilometers. And the winner there was Wout van Aert of Belgium. A great win for him. He won in 16 minutes and 20 seconds. And in second place was Primož Roglič of Slovenia, about 2 seconds slower than Van Aert. Third place was Rohan Dennis of Australia, 6 seconds after the winner. The overall classification now, it is now the general classifications, it is Wout van Aert that moves up into the yellow jersey because of this win. His combined time is now 21 hours and 51 minutes, and he is 10 seconds ahead of Primož Roglič, that is in second place. And the yellow jersey holder before the time trial was Christophe Laporte of France, and he falls back into third place in the general classifications. He is 28 seconds behind Van Aert after the time trial. The fifth stage will be one of 2 stages that will be in the mountains, and that will be over 188 kilometers. And with that, I conclude the international sporting news for today. Have a great day, and we talk again tomorrow. Goodbye.
Welcome back to Africa Good Morning. If you've missed the entire show and you're only joining us now, here are your highlights. Gunmen in Nigeria attacked deputy governor's convoy, killing at least 19 people. Xenophobia resurfaces in South Africa, Malawi, the government speaks out. UK sanctions Roman Abramovich and bars sale of Chelsea Football Club. Cases surge in Nigeria as 60 Ukraine's returnees test positive. Eskom moves to stage 3 load shedding. Tanzania focusing on strengthening exports and special economic zones. Those have been our stories.
And with that, we've come to the end of our show. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Friday morning. Now, do remember that Africa Good Morning is repeated on our 1up2 website and on our DSTV channel 285 between 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. And if you have any comments regarding our show, do share them with us on our Twitter and Facebook pages. And if you happen to have photos or videos of happenings in your parts of Africa, do share them with us and we'll gladly include them in a segment in our program. I am Glen Rashipura and this is Aina Riza Koyo.
From everyone here in studio, it's a happy Friday. All our love, all our light.